Okay, mute is off. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and hi. Welcome to our first show. We actually have had a rehearsal show, so we've gathered before, but we're a new show, and it's called, I think it's called G3. That's going to be a surprise to my show companions. I keep changing the name of the show. Actually, we keep changing the name of the show. So it might be G cubed. It might be G3. I'll let you try to figure out why. So we're a new show of women who live and work within the tech field. Some of us are here in Silicon Valley. Some of us are just around, I guess, the United States. I'd like to say the globe, but maybe sometime. And we're going to be exploring whatever's going on that we find interesting in tech and in our lives. And that sort of goes a little further than tech. So I'd like to introduce everybody. And keep your bios low, gals. I told everybody kind of like a Twitter bio. So let me introduce you to Rebecca Woodcock. Rebecca.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Woodcock. Thank you, Tina, for having me here on the show. I am an entrepreneur. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Cake Health. And so you could think of it like personal finance software for your healthcare. And I deal a lot with health data issues and privacy. So I'll probably have a lot to talk about that.
Great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. And next up, let's see. I also want to tell you that not only am I hosting the show, but I'm pushing a lot of buttons here. So if you see me look down, I'll hopefully show you my board later. Or maybe I can do this and show you that. So that's my setup. And I look down and I see a lot of things here. So, okay. So next up, Mary Hodder. Mary, hey.
Hey. So let's see, quick bio. Well, what am I doing this week? How about that? I'm working toward a personal data and privacy hackathon, which is going to happen in July in San Francisco. And we're coordinating with Tel Aviv and Berlin as part of the Open Knowledge Foundation Festival that they have every July. And let's see, I'm working on, I also do a lot of consulting around personal data and privacy control technology. Although this week I went to the Ag Tech conference on Monday, yesterday in Palo Alto, and that's got me thinking about ag and technology and privacy and personal data issues. My interests are varied.
That sounds like something that we're going to talk about probably on the show today.
Yeah.
All right.
Could be.
Okay. And Denise Howell. Why don't you introduce yourself?
You suggested we use our Twitter bios because they're nice and brief. So mine says lawyer, mom, and info vagabond. I'm also the host of a show called This Week in Law. I'm, as I mentioned, a lawyer. So on our show, we try and focus on the technology law and policy issues that confront us all, from the privacy side of things to very hot this week is net neutrality, to copyright and digital rights issues, a whole bunch of interesting stuff.
So you can see that we've got lots of different perspectives from the tech industry here, and I'm so excited to be with all these wonderful women. So we've got one more to introduce you to, and that's Hallie Suit Tucker. Hallie.
Hey, hi, how are you doing? Very quick, short bio. I'm at Hallie on Twitter. I'm an entrepreneur and an author, and I've written a book about entrepreneurs, particular women entrepreneurs. That's it.
All right. So we've got everyone introduced. This is great. So before we get started, I wanted to a little disclaimer. I am well, let me tell you who I am. My name is Tina Chase Gilmore. I've been producing a show called The Gilmore Gang for a bunch of years. It's a tech show with Silicon Valley notables. And I am more comfortable behind the camera and pushing buttons and not seen and not heard. So I'm stepping way outside of my comfort zone. And over the years, people have said, "Hey, why don't you do a show?" And I've always said, "No, that's not me." But more nudges, more years, and here we are. So I know that these wonderful, smart women are going to guide me, and Denise has been doing this for a long time, so I'm glad to have her with us. So let's let me switch gears for a second and tell you something that I experienced recently that I thought, yeah, I could just open up the show a little bit. I have gotten this feeling that the only kind of customer service that I get these days is when I scream loudly on Twitter that I'm not getting good customer service. And I was wondering if you've experienced this, if this is happening for you guys at all. Do you use Twitter? Do you use Facebook? Do you use other social media in that way? And is it useful for you? And what do you think about it? Anybody?
I think we all use social media.
Yeah, we all use social media, but are we using it? Is it as a customer service sort of thing? Is that do you go to it for that, for any reason?
Well, I mean, there's different things, right? You can tweet out and it's a general broadcast, but on Facebook, if I'm going to talk to somebody here, I'm going to, in honor of Denise wearing a hat, I too am going to wear my Burning Man hat.
Yay!
With a little bit of Burning Man dust.
Very
so
pithy.
If I have a complaint and I'm on Facebook, I will write on the entity's, Facebook page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some success with that, although, in the olden days, 10 years ago, when people, oh my God, that's so cool. She's got a hat. We should all wear hats, Hallie. You got to get a hat while we're
I think Hallie's getting her hat.
Anyway, in the olden days there we go, we've all got hats. In the olden days, when people would write a blog post or, early Twitter or whatever they would tweet, the social media convention was that a company would take the opportunity, or the rest of the world would school that company on taking the opportunity to turn a problem into a good thing, right? To show how they were doing the right thing and all of that. I'm noticing on Facebook in the last couple of years that if you post something that's a problem on an entity's website, they delete the post.
Mm.
And then you message them and you say, hey guys, that's not really how it's done. And they don't seem to get it. In fact, I even had the city of Mountain View, should be ground zero for social media, right? We had a problem with the city, and I couldn't get anybody because it was on a Sunday. They were playing amplified music right on Castro Street, and it was rattling the windows and doors 2 blocks away. And I was like, we have Shoreline Amphitheater. How about the amplified music down at the amphitheater? And they deleted the post within 10 minutes. And,
wow.
It was a Sunday. There was no way to contact anyone at the city and say, this really isn't appropriate for your festival, like they've never done this at any of the prior festivals, and they just deleted it. So, as far as customer service goes, I mean, I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I've kind of abandoned telling companies about too much stuff online because I just don't feel like I get really a very good response, and they don't understand how to use it, as I said, in that way where it could be an opportunity to show the rest of their customers, hey, we're good at customer service. Instead, they kind of screw it up, and it's a waste of my time, so I don't do it.
That's interesting. What happened with me recently is we had a an old AT&T line going through our backyard, and it was hanging low. It had been hanging low for a while, and I had the suspicion that it wasn't even used anymore, but I didn't know for sure. I knew that I needed it lifted, and I got on the phone, and it just, one person after another, and we were just transferred all over the place. Nobody was doing anything. Nobody was going to do anything. Nobody got it. I don't know. Steve talked, I talked. It just wasn't happening. I went to Twitter and I expressed my frustration with AT&T, and we're no longer an AT&T customer, which I thought maybe, that was part of the problem. And, within a minute, someone from, their customer care program called me or DM'd me, and then through private DM just got it rolling, and I had excellent service after that. And
Wow.
this is not the
I'm
first
impressed.
time that has happened. This has happened to me a couple of times, and I wouldn't say I've gotten nasty on Twitter, but I've said, hey, I tried your other, routes for customer service, and it wasn't working for me, and now I'm super frustrated, and this isn't, a great experience. So I just found it kind of interesting, and I wonder if there might be some, I don't know, new tools or direction or something for companies, using that channel. But all right, sounds good.
Actually, can I add one thing?
Please.
Well, first of all, it's freezing here. Okay, you guys.
Is it
talked
really?
about 80 degrees. I put my hat on because it's 46.
Oh my
in
gosh.
Boston.
No way.
Can you hear
Wow.
me?
Hallie's in Boston. Yeah.
I would just say a quick thing on this, which is, I think you got a great idea, Tina, if you think of a Twitter that's just about connecting for customer response. Maybe something needs to be built around that. And I heard at Le Web in France last year, Fred Wilson was talking about taking things apart and unbundling. So maybe what we're really talking, what you suggest to me that I like a lot is don't do it on Twitter, but maybe there's a new service you could create. Maybe you create it, I'll create it, one of us, that is about customer service only. Like they really are hyper aware this is where people can go. I am, like with Mary, very reluctant now to say anything because it gets a lot of people upset. So I don't use it. Although I think early bloggers set that tradition in motion where people would use it. And then we got the attention early on with like the Comcast people and like that. But I think I never use it now for that. I try really hard not to pick a fight on Twitter or say something nasty because I just don't want to do that. But it would be a great service and it would be much better than the phone. I don't think the phone works at all anymore.
So there is Get Satisfaction,
Right.
which, was Amy and Thor Mueller's, and some other folks worked on it. Christine Herron, I think, helped fund them when she was at First Round Capital. Now she's at
Right.
Intel. But, I mean, that service exists, and it is an independent, unbundled customer service. And,
Right.
basically, if you're in the company, you can say, oh, I manage this product, so when people have complaints, I'm the person who should get those and all of that.
Is it
I
short
did use
the
it for
way
a time,
Twitter
but
is?
when I listed problems with products, they just kind of scrolled down amongst a million other problems. And again, it felt like it got lost. And after a while, I was sort of not that into it. So I
Yeah.
quit.
Well, one thing we haven't talked about
I
yet.
like that Twitter's so short. Maybe something short works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Twitter and Facebook are things that the rank and file of people use. And I think that's why they're so effective for customer service if companies are actually able to leverage them. But I think the scaling issue is a difficult one. If, your hundreds of thousands of customers are reaching out to you on Twitter, you really have to staff up for that or you're going to be perceived as dropping the ball. That's why something like Get Satisfaction might work better for companies. But I think it's not as good a solution because people have to know about Get Satisfaction.
Right. It's true.
And we do, but I don't think my neighbor across the street does.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, then if you don't have the right tools, then you get issues, or the right people who are handling it, quite frankly, because then you get something like the American Airlines debacle, which I don't know if you've all heard what happened there a few weeks ago, where they tried to do some customer support over Twitter, but ended up accidentally posting a very lewd photo to their customer, and it blew up into a very big deal.
The ultimate in cut and paste.
Exactly what you don't want to do, right? Right.
Exactly what you don't want to do.
Oh my gosh, that's true. Well, Hallie, I think you have the right idea. Sometimes, we come up with ideas on these kind of shows, and then it's our chance to jump in and actually do something. So I don't mind using this tool for that purpose of sort of initiating some action. So if someone wants to take that idea and run with it on our group, let's go do it before someone who's watching does. I actually want to add one thing. Last week was the conference IIW, it's Internet Identity Workshop, and Nitin Bhajan, who is at Oracle, gave a really interesting kind of mini talk in the middle of one of the sessions. And what he talked about was so he does a lot of customer service work, and in fact, Oracle, I think, helps. Part of what they sell are like large systems that can manage tons of customer complaints and then track them through the complaint process. And so the Oracle customers are actually buying those systems to then manage their own customer service problems. So he had this really interesting diagram, which was basically how, imagine kind of a diagram. So when you're at the top and once you're a customer of something, let's say you bought an iPhone or something, you're an owner, your experience is really good. And then you have a little bit of a problem and things go down. But it's not totally, terrible yet. You've just, you've got a little bit of an issue. Well, how does Apple handle it? They have Genius bars. You go in, you make an appointment, and usually they can fix your things. So then your sense of what's going on, moves back to a higher position, and things are good. But let's say it's about your dishwasher and they didn't fix it. Things continue to deteriorate, and as you have to make. Oh.
Eek.
Yipes. We suddenly lost Mary.
Mid-thought.
Oh my goodness. So
this might be a good time for me to ask Steve to get you a hat.
Yeah. Yeah, Denise, I'm going to let you talk for a minute, actually, while I try to bring Mary back in. So why don't you...
Well, we're talking about customer service and social media, and I think part of the kind of delightful aspect of it for people is serendipity, when they just go on to vent and complain and they don't really expect to get a response, and they do. That really, I think, more than exceeds the customer expectations. And serendipity would be why we're all wearing hats, and it all has to do with the fact that I could not dry my hair this morning, so stuffed it in a hat. But I like it. It works for the show.
So I have one of those attitudes about using Twitter and social media that's like if you can't say something nice, don't say something at all. So I'm trying more and more when I get good customer service to mention it. And people, I really do love it. And so I had a really good flight when I had to go down I was going down to your neck of the woods, Charlotte, North Carolina, Hilton Head and all that, and Atlanta. And people on U.S. Air, who I almost never fly and I don't like very much, were fabulous. And I made a big point on Twitter to say so, and people really appreciated it. So that was fun. That was good.
I was just whispering to Steve, I lost Mary. And I still don't have Mary back. And Steve just brought me a hat. Let me see what it is.
There we go.
Yay.
Except this will totally cover my face. It says What is it?
like
Russian
that one.
River Jazz and Blues Festival. Oh yes.
Oh,
Ooh,
fun.
nice.
I remember this. This is where we had a nice event with our dear friend David Sanborn when he was playing up there, right on the
Cute.
river. It's a really cool thing if you've never done that, and if you're in the area, go to Russian River Jazz Festival and hi Steve, and you can like. You get into inner tubes and boats on the river and listen to good jazz. It's like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh my.
What town is it near, Tina?
Well, it's way up. Does anyone
Let's read your hat.
I don't think it says on the hat. It
The
just
Russian
says
River's kind of a big river.
Russian River. I guess it's somewhere near Santa Rosa somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. Maybe a little bit further up. I'm sort of blanking on the name. It'll
That
come to
makes
me.
sense.
It's one of those.
I can envision where the Russian River crosses 101 about Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's somewhere up there. Okay, I can't go to that shot because that's Steve. So all right. Somehow having trouble getting Steve, can you work on it on over there? No. No. Okay. It's just how it goes. So you know what?
Well, while you're trying to get
Oh,
Mary,
yeah.
I'm actually curious to get the other ladies' thoughts on the Twitter announcement, the partnership with Amazon, tweeting your purchases, and that's something that was just announced this past week. Sort of a segue from our Twitter conversation. Do people really want to tweet what they're purchasing or tweet to purchase something? I'm having a
give
hard
us-
time wrapping around what need they're solving and if this is really an opportunity, because I personally am not getting it.
Give us the context, Rebecca. What exactly has been agreed, and to what extent are people going to be able to have choice about how much they share?
Well, to me, it's a little bit vague, and maybe that's just reading one article and not digging too deeply into it. But it's a partnership between Twitter and Amazon where you can tweet and do some sort of a hashtag that would then purchase an item on Amazon.
Oh, that's interesting because, they've had for a long time, and I discovered this by accident. You're reading along. Here's my Kindle. I'm reading along in my Kindle, and if I highlight something, it can actually go right onto Twitter. And that had been set up by accident, or I didn't know it was already a default. And people are like, wow, like you like that line in that book? And I'm like, what? So I hope it's a very opt-in, opt-out and very obvious what you can do. It's kind of interesting. I mean, the way you're describing it, does that mean if I wrote something about, wow, I'd love a new orange kayak, to take on a trip with the kids, and then it's available on Amazon, do I order it by accident if I'm not careful?
Here's
I don't
what the
want
Motley
one
Fool
showing up
says
at my
about
house.
it. It looks like this was just announced yesterday, right? Yesterday was May 12th.
Right.
It says Twitter and Amazon have created a new social shopping feature based around the hashtag #AmazonCart or hashtag Amazon Cart and hashtag Amazon Basket for the UK site. The concept focuses on uninterrupted browsing. Users can link their Twitter and Amazon accounts. They don't have to.
Good.
Then respond to tweets that include an Amazon link using the appropriate hashtag. The item is automatically added to their cart for future buying. So it also doesn't buy it for you instantly. It puts it in your cart and you can think about it. It's a notable move for the sort of social monetization Facebook is attempting, and for today's e-commerce world where the lines between social and business continue to blur.
Yeah, I don't see a need to do that. Why wouldn't I just go to Amazon and put it in the cart? I'm going to have to go there anyway. What does Twitter have to do with it? That's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Yeah, it sounds.
Uninterrupted browsing. So I guess the concept would be you see it on Twitter, and that, let's see, how would this work? You respond to tweets that include an Amazon link. So you're replying, somebody links to Hallie's book, and you think to yourself, I want to buy Hallie's book. So you reply to that tweet and you put hashtag Amazon cart in your reply, and it, boom, without you having to go to launch Amazon, you have put it in your cart. But you're right, Rebecca. I mean, it seems sort of a non-substantive reply, a non-conversational reply to do that. Although maybe, I don't know, maybe there are people for whom this would streamline things. What do you think, Mary? I mean, it's obviously riven with privacy ramifications. Oh, Mary's not with us. I forgot.
Yeah,
We're trying to
Mary.
get her back.
Mary is still not here.
Right.
We can't quite figure out how we lost her, but we're trying to figure it out.
It's those joys of Skype.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me what you think, Tina and Hallie. Would you think this was weird? If you wanted to buy something, would you feel like you were disclosing more than you wanted to by putting this hashtag Amazon cart in your reply to a tweet about Hallie's book, for example?
I have something to say about this. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to open up the big, is this the best that software people can do question?
Yeah.
We're getting the report from the government about we're on the edge of global warming disaster. We have other things that minds and software engineers and people who can fix things need to be fixing. And again, I mean, maybe we're just in Boston and we have a different attitude. But when you think of the last 10 years, so you got people that now you can order an Uber cab on your phone. Okay, great. Like we used to just use the phone and call a cab. Okay, you can order food to come to your house. Oh yeah? Well, we used to just order a pizza. It came to my house. And now we got this. Like, could somebody use these brilliant people to do something a little more useful is what we kind of are lately thinking about. I know how to buy something off Amazon. I don't really need to connect those services.
It's a classic example of, in my opinion, they solutioned something to, was there ever a problem to begin with?
Yes.
Are they solving a problem with the solution?
Yeah.
But
for some people, they're solving a time problem. That they actually are so harried that to be able to save a few clicks to put something in a shopping cart rather than having to change tabs, open a new site, that might actually be valuable to people.
I am not convinced.
I am not convinced either. But what I will say,
I want people to use technology to do amazing things. When people invented, I know it's way throwback, thinking, but when they made a printed circuit, that really changed things. They could, put them in pacemakers and save people's lives. I'm sorry, I know, but I feel like when you're hiring only 20-year-old guys that even want to get laid or order a pizza, why are those the only problems they're solving? I don't care.
Getting laid and getting pizza are two very important societal compulsions, Hallie. Don't downplay the sex and pizza.
First things first, right? Right? Okay.
which comes first?
I'm sorry. It's just, could we?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, how many Viagra commercials do we need to see, right? It's the same thing. So, Hallie, were you making a gesture?
No, I wasn't. No. My hands are safely here. So, no.
Whoa.
I
Hands
forgot.
above the
Getting
table.
laid,
Hallie.
ordering pizza, and getting a taxi.
Oh,
No. Can't we do better? That's all I keep thinking. I'd like to see people addressing these big issues. I mean, it's absolutely terrifying if you read slowly and carefully the report this week. if you read the Pew Trust report about demographics and where we're going in this society, where it used to be a pyramid of lots of younger people paying into the workforce and supporting the older people that are retiring. Okay, so you have that thing that's turned into a rectangle. Have you seen? It's the rectangle. You must read that. And then the global warming reports are really shocking too. And I have an 18-year-old. He's brilliant, and I want him to work on problems that he can solve, and I believe he can do great work. But I think the leadership of people, and this is financial leadership of people investing in things, I just don't think we need to have a war about whether cabs can come to your door.
Oh, I disagree with you on that one, Hallie.
Okay, let's hear
I think Uber, well, I don't want to have a war about cabs, but I think that Uber is a really important business model development, highly disruptive. The taxi cab industry is one of the most highly locally regulated in the world. Very difficult for them to innovate themselves because of all the regulation around the industry and all the protectionism of the incumbent business models. And Uber has stepped in, and its competitors as well, and completely upended that, and given rise to a new business model that makes us rethink all those regulations and lower the price of the services and raise the quality of the services in ways that we like to see, right? We'd love your 18-year-old to be able to come up with a similar kind of business model that just says, hey, this particular way of doing things in our society, maybe I'm not curing cancer, but this particular thing that everybody uses every day, or a large segment of society does, is broken in many ways. And I'm going to build a business that fixes those many ways, and I'm going to see where the chips fall. That's what Uber has done. And now, they're facing all kinds of legal challenges. They're banned in certain cities because the local regulations don't support you being able to run around with private drivers and not all the oversight that the cab industry has. So I think that's an order of magnitude different than using a hashtag to put something in your shopping cart. I mean, that's a little convenience for people, maybe speeds things up. I think Uber's something to watch, and I'm happy that it's out there showing us, I don't think many people sit around thinking about the taxi cab industry or other incumbent industries and how it can work better, but they should, and Uber did.
So are we talking about just different business models and how to make them more modern, more working with our new technologies? Are we talking about the sharing society, the share economy? That's a big Silicon Valley buzz phrase. Does it exist? I know I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was saying, she's in a business where she has to move stuff around constantly, and she used to have a truck and she doesn't now. And she says, I need a truck again. And she says, but it would be really great if I could buy a truck, and then on the days that I wasn't using it, someone else could use it and rent it from me. And I was like, yeah, people are doing that, Mom. I think you can get that going. So is the sharing economy, is it happening? Is Uber the perfect example? Is our Airbnb the perfect example of that? And where are we going?
I don't think Uber's about sharing. You're not sharing when you use Uber. You're just getting a nicer car at a lower price and giving your money to someone else. There are plenty of transportation kinds of things out there. What are they? The Zip cars and other things that are around sharing a single resource and using it efficiently across many people. I think that too is a really interesting new business model. I know that I'm thinking about summertime now where, God, my son has less than a month left of school. I can't believe that. And what are we going to do? And for the first time, the first thing that popped into my head as a vacation option for the summer is, hey, I got to jump on Airbnb and see what's out there and what might be cool. So that, I think that they have gotten over, Airbnb in particular, and maybe some of its competitors too, have gotten over their initial growing pains of, what do you mean strangers are going to come to the house and these people aren't vetted, and how do I know this place isn't a dump? I think they're starting to show that with proper attention and moderation, the social aspect can really work to make direct transactions between people. Again, kind of like Uber, Airbnb allows you to toss out a whole level of financial transaction in the rental process that you no longer need a rental agent or listing fees or things like that. If you're going directly to your customers, you're still paying somebody. I've never listed something on Airbnb. I assume they take some percentage of the rentals, but it would be a smaller one.
They charge you. So if you buy a $50 rental, for example, they'll probably charge you $5, and then the person who's providing the rental will pay a few dollars. So that's the model, is that they kind of split the fees, I think. But I think the renter pays a little bit more, and it's tacked on to the cost of the rental.
Right. So it's sort of painless.
One of the interesting things about it is this issue of, for example, Mountain View, where I live, has a 30-day policy, right? And you're not supposed to rent things for less than 30 days unless you get a hotel license. San Francisco's the same way. Other cities are the same way. And I get the whole thing about people being annoyed with hotel taxes. They're really high. It really offloads a high expense to generate money for the city onto travelers. And that's annoying, right? Because if you're a traveler, why should you pay that city, 20% a day of your hotel costs in additional taxes? But, there is another side to it. If it's not a house, like a freestanding house, with plenty of room between it and the next door neighbors, you do have this issue of, if you're a renter, why is your next door neighbor having new troops of people coming in every night? The wear and tear to the household, and to the general, common spaces is higher for the landlord, and the neighbors have to put up with, God knows what on a daily basis. I have a friend who rented her place out, and the people had a party in the house, and they came back and it was just all trashed. And yes, there was a deposit, and yes, they got it all cleaned up, but the neighbors had to deal with that. And so I get the reason for some of the regulation. It's the impact on people, that hotels have is just different than day-to-day living.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mary. And I think it's really similar to the Uber taxi cab issue, is that, people have gotten used to laws making things one way, and a company like Airbnb and its, direct to renters competitors come in and upend those expectations, and the laws fly out the window, or it makes you rethink them and go, well, really, should we have this 30-day minimum rental policy? Don't people have the freedom to do what they want with their homes? And then you get into kind of zoning issues. Okay, well, should we do it in this area versus this area? And it's all a big mess. But I do think that we, at least here in the United States, we have this sense of self-determination with our property. And gold darn it, if I reach out to somebody in Boston who wants to come spend a weekend in Newport Beach, then there's nothing the government should be able to say about why we shouldn't have that happen. So
I will say that the places where I've rented an Airbnb, they basically are busy every night. So if I take 4 nights, like the day that I leave, there's a new group of people coming in. Yeah. And so it's not just for a weekend, like you would have weekend guests, or even 2 weeks. Like, let's say your mother came to visit you for 2 weeks. That's one thing. It's another thing to have, a group of visitors. In my case, there were 3 of us, in there, and then we leave, and then, four people come, and then two people come, and I mean, it's just, it's I can see the argument for, the impact on the neighbors. And I mean, yes, we should be able to self-determine, with our property, maybe. But, I can't walk into the backyard and dump 10 gallons of gasoline and have the plume go over to the neighbors and expect to not get sued. I mean, or to have the city come and tell me, like, I've just created a toxic waste dump. I mean, it's, we have these rules because we live all in the same places together, and maybe we need to rethink them. And actually, the city of Mountain View, and I think San Francisco too, is considering, changing the regulations. And I think that's a good thing. But I think you have to think about it. Otherwise, you do get a lot of chaos, and there's a high impact on people. And if the neighbors can't sleep because people are out partying all night on a weeknight because they're on vacation, but the neighbors are working, I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I've certainly seen people talk about buying a property for the explicit intention of having it be an Airbnb property, and it basically paying the mortgage. And I think Mary brings up a lot of good points. That really is a hotel. I mean, it really is. It's how fair is that to neighbors, to people in the area, when you've got, basically strangers in the property all the time. So, new models have, they have to sort through all this eventually.
Right.
And I'm sure that's being, tackled with Airbnb.
I think it's really interesting that they started out as sort of this, or they marketed themselves as sort of this home swap model, and it really hasn't gone that way. I think you're absolutely right, Mary and Tina, that people do buy properties with the sole intent of this is going to be my easy way to rent it out.
I actually know several people who've done that. They own places in Las Vegas, San Francisco, LA. They've basically chosen places where they know people want to come, and they would rather have a kitchen or kitchenette than not. And so Airbnb is really attractive because it really cuts down on your food costs, even if you're paying the same nightly rate as you would in a hotel. Let's say you're spending $150, $200 a night. But now you don't have to spend the extra $50 a day eating out. You can, just make something or whatever for some of the meals. And so people do that, or maybe they get a little bit more room. I mean, I get the whole reason to do it. I've done it. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to do it at all, but I just, I will say there is a parallel. Somebody was saying to me the other day about Airbnb, they were talking about this, and I said, well, when I was a kid, my parents took us to England for 2 months, and they had a little book, and we were driving around the back roads of England, and they would just look up in the book, and there would be 5 B&Bs listed, and we would stay in someone's house. They would call, and, it might be, at the time I remember, it was like £5 a night for the 5 of us to stay in somebody's, 2 of their spare bedrooms. And then they would feed us breakfast in the morning. It was kind of amazing. And, so I guess that's a long time ago. I'm saying I'm old here. But basically, it's not like this has not existed before. It's just that it was very small scale when it's in a little book. And, there's printing costs, and there's nobody's going to do it if they're not serious about it because you're going into a book. I mean, it's just different than Airbnb, where at the you just get on your keyboard and you're on your computer and you're on or off for a night. You know what I mean? Like, you don't feel like having anyone come. You've got friends coming. You turn it off and you turn it back on. I mean, it's much more flexible now and much more scalable. And so I think it's the scalability and flexibility that is freaking people out in a way that maybe didn't exist before.
There's a website I just learned about last week called Home Exchange, and it takes that Airbnb type sharing model to another level, where you basically list your home like you would Airbnb, but it's a swap model. You agree with other people who you might be interested in visiting their city or whatever it may be, but no money is exchanged. You don't pay for the place. You just basically agree to switch homes for however long you're on vacation for. And that takes away any of these monetary issues. And I think that's a really interesting take on this sharing economy that removes some of these barriers to what do you do with the costs, and are you a hotel or not? But if it's my home and I want to share my home, do you then not have any problems because there's no money exchange? I thought that was a really interesting another take on a similar business model, but it's more of an agreement. There's no money exchanging. So you're not
So I know
earning
people
money,
who've done
but
that
you're
for
also-
years. I have a friend who lives in Amsterdam, and she and her husband have come here and swapped with somebody in San Francisco. Oh, my apologies. A neighbor has
What's
their
that
car
noise?
alarm is going off.
Uh-oh.
Dang Uber
Man,
car.
I'm just having so many issues today. I apologize.
Oh
Anyway,
my
here, let me mute.
God, Mary.
I love that.
Oh,
It's funny.
they got to it. They turned it off. How about that?
I think she
No,
muted.
it's still going.
Oh, it is? You muted yourself.
I muted myself. It's
Mary
still
found her
going.
mute button. Oh, that's great. Well, we live in an urban environment, or a lot of us do here, so it's we hear all kinds of things, all kinds of fun things.
Now that we got
it-
Mary back, can we ask her? Are you still beeping out there, Mary?
Yeah, it's
I
still
was
beeping.
wondering.
Can you guys
dropped
hear
out
it,
of
or
the
is it just me?
conversation as we were discussing this whole hashtag Amazon cart thing that Amazon and Twitter have agreed to partner up, and what it is basically a way to. They just announced it yesterday. If somebody has tweeted an Amazon link, instead of just clicking that link and adding it to your cart, you can reply to the link with the hashtag, hey, hashtag Amazon cart. And you could say, hey, I like that, or I'd be interested in that. If you put hashtag Amazon cart, it will automatically dump it into your shopping cart. Are there, I don't see a whole lot of privacy issue with this, because people have got to know when they do that, they're voluntarily broadcasting that they'd like to buy the thing.
Right. I mean,
Do you
if
have
you're
any thoughts about
publishing it, I don't see why there would be a problem.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, if you're not aware and you're typing it out, we can't help you. With that issue.
I don't know. You know better than most that some people go on Twitter and think it's just between them and their handful of friends, right?
That's true. That is true. It is an interesting issue, but I mean, I don't know. I think at this point, people are pretty aware that when you post something on Twitter, if you don't have a private account, it's completely public.
Well, our friend Robert Scoble just says, assume that it's all out there and just go for it. I don't know. I don't think a lot of us can do that, but that's his philosophy, and it works for him, but not all of us can be Robert Scoble, for sure.
That's right. And the beauty of it is that not Robert can make that choice and it works for him. But the way things are structured, it has to account for the fact that not everybody wants to live that life.
Robert's a bit of a data exhibitionist, which I've told him to his face. He laughed. He was like, "Yeah, that's me."
Maybe we need to get him on the show someday and sort of work this out.
Show us your data.
Yeah. Hallie, I know that you're a avid reader and author, and you are always interested in engaging us
I'm
with
getting
some.
my clock noise.
Oh no! What's
now.
going on with you?
From me, you get the clock. From her, you
Okay,
get the car.
can I just say there's a full
all
moon tomorrow
noise
night, and I
all
don't
the
really
time.
believe in that stuff. But my God,
didn't hear
really?
So, as I was saying, if you can get through your cuckoo clock, did you have a book that you wanted to alert us to, or anything like that
I like
today?
to read, and I'm always reading a million books. So I would say I did love Dana Boyd's book that she calls It's Complicated. And she demonstrates how complicated it is to understand teenagers and social media and privacy around that and the games they play. So I think a bunch of you guys have read it. I think you probably have all met Dana that would be lowercase d Dana Boyd, lowercase b. And she's the Microsoft, I'm trying to think, she's a fellow, I believe, at Microsoft. She's at the Berkman Center at Harvard Law School. She's just brilliant. And Mary, did you go to school with her at Berkeley? Is that it?
I did. I did. So Dana, well, so just to be clear, for those who, I've heard people say Dana Boyd with lowercase. I'm not doing that. Well, actually, she had her name legally changed. So you can say Dana Boyd with a lowercase d and be confident that it's correct.
Okay.
So yeah, Dana was at Berkeley. She started the year after I was there getting a master's at the School of Information. She was a PhD student, and she started working with Peter Lyman, who was a professor there, doing youth studies, basically looking at how kids react and interact with technology. And she started out with Friendster, I think was her first big data set that she worked with, and then MySpace. And she was at Yahoo for a little while as a research fellow or something. And then she was at Google for a little while. A lot of people don't know that she went from Yahoo to Google. Then she got her PhD, and then ended up at Microsoft Research in Cambridge. Although I think now, just to be clear, I think she's on leave because of the book, and she had a kid. And she is also a research fellow at Harvard's Berkman Center. So she is really pretty accomplished. I actually went to hear her talk. She did a talk at Berkeley back in our home school, the information school, and it was a great talk. In fact, I posted a photo to Flickr. If you look on my Mary Hodder Flickr photo stream, it's there with her book cover, and it was a great talk because she talked about how she told stories basically that really illustrated some of the points in the book about how and why kids do the things that they do that are different than what adults do. So like when we're looking at our phones, we're typically, like this, and it's just us, right? So the interaction is very solitary and it separates us from other people. But what she observes when she looks at kids is they're looking at the phone like this, and there's like 3 of them, and they're all sharing photos or videos or experiences. So it's a very social thing, not social media online, but social in person. And it's really different for them. It was really, really interesting to hear her, share some of the stories and talk about what she learned doing the book.
I think one of the most interesting things is all these things you would assume about teenagers, she blows the lid on some of them, right? It's not so obvious. For instance, they're not all so tech savvy. They may be digital natives that grew up in a time when it was all about the web, but you can't be sure they all, know everything about the web or know how to do everything on the web. So I thought that was pretty interesting that she moves you along the path of, yes, they're very knowledgeable, but there's other pieces that they don't use in their lives that it was surprising that way. I liked it. It's a great book, really good. And she's very much against that, like, there's going to be like the internet predators are going to like ruin this generation of children and take them off. She's completely against that. I saw she had a piece in Time magazine. There was another piece recently that dispelled that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I actually think if you just look at the statistics for abductions, because a lot of the sort of child predator fear is around the media portrayal of child abductions, right?
Yes.
And so over the years, of course, we have more children and more populace, and the number of abductions that have used to be in the neighborhood of 300 per year that were stranger abductions, right? That's the online child predator equivalent today from 20 years ago. And now it's around 150 a year. So our populace has gone up, and the number of those stranger abductions has gone down.
Wow.
And yet people are more terrified than ever of strangers, predators online. The interesting thing, and Dana talks about this a lot, is that kids know about it. They're like, yeah, we see these people online. They're freaks. We don't talk to them. I think kids actually know how to mediate that stuff a lot better than we, the general adult population, give them credit for. And, I am actually really not concerned about that. My biggest concern is that
kids are so hovered over, and and I make that as a generalization. I certainly know plenty of parents that don't do that, but there are a lot of kids who are so hovered over, so contained. They're locked up in their rooms. The only thing they have to be social with their friends during certain hours of the day is technology. It is getting on Twitter, or texting over WhatsApp, or on their phones or whatever, and using various, I don't know, Snapchat, Instagram, various other tools. And can you blame them? I mean, they're trapped in their rooms alone. And what a way to learn how to socialize with people, to learn how to mediate yourself in a way with others so that you can function as an adult later in life. And my fear is that there's all these kids who don't know how to socialize. And my own experience, maybe again, this is just Bay Area living, but and the fact that tech, attracts so many, we're so Aspergery here, but I bump into kids all the time, or will work with them, and they can barely, carry a conversation. It's not all the kids, but there's a significant number of them that don't really know how to socialize, and I worry that because we're so afraid of predators, and we have to lock them down so much, that we're actually not making them viable in the culture, as adults.
Yep.
I'll give you some fries with that Asperger. not being in the Bay Area, I have a great anecdote along these lines to share. And it's one, again, total serendipity. I didn't expect to see this happen. My son is too young to have a social media account. And I actually am a parent who knows where that boundary is, partially because I'm a lawyer, and partially because it's just not the right thing for him yet, probably. But a lot of parents, I think, let their kids on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and other things that have that 13-year-old age lower barrier when they're younger than that. Mine's not on there yet. So he really hasn't had the opportunity to have a lot of social interaction, except he plays Xbox games. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, he's not a huge gamer, but he just got a new game that he really, really likes. And it has a social aspect to it.
Yes.
And, under careful watching, we've seen how that has played out. And you're absolutely right, Mary, and I'm, proud to pat my husband and I on the back that I think we've given him the tools to be able to mediate these relationships. He was getting trolled by someone, he and his friends were getting, bugged and prodded, and not in a weird, like, sexual predatory way, just someone was being mean to them. And who knows how old that person was. But they knew exactly what to do. They just, cut that person off, unfriended, however you do that on the Xbox.
Right.
He left the party. I guess they have private parties they can join. And they knew right away how to get out of that situation and how to not feed the troll. And then, when you look at the positive social aspect of it, it reminds me of when I first encountered the internet in the 1990s and it was like ham radio to me. I couldn't get over the fact that I could talk to someone halfway around the world and have, a fun dialogue with them. And I wasn't incurring phone charges and, all the difficulty of communications with people far away fell out. So my son in the last week has become buddies with someone exactly his age. And we know he's exactly his age. I've spoken with his mother in Alaska. And they're now sort of Xbox pen pals. They jump on the Xbox, they play their game, but they talk about their lives and the differences between their lives. And the kid in Alaska ran out with his Xbox headset on yesterday to feed the chickens. And, the connection was getting all scratchy because he was getting far away from the base station. But they continued talking, and my son's learning about his life in Alaska. They live somewhere really remote near Kodiak Island. And then all of a sudden the kid goes, whoops, moose in the yard, gotta go back inside. So mean, he's getting, this wonderful experience exposed to someone, a real-time pen pal kind of relationship that's just delightful. And my son is so into it because they're studying Alaska. They're studying the entire United States in geography in school, but they had just done Alaska. And so the mom jumped on and asked me if it would be okay if they mailed some, brochures and things, tourist material about Alaska so that Tyler could learn more. And it's just, a wonderful thing that he stumbled into without even a Twitter or a Facebook account. So I do think that that Dana, if anybody's going to give parents good advice about how to navigate these waters, I'd want it to be Dana Boyd. If you're a parent who's looking to figure out, what tools can I give my kid, read Dana's stuff because she knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really the promise of these tools, right? I mean, these connectivity tools and our phones and is people just who wouldn't normally be able to connect. And I see, enormous. I was thinking about that possibility with schools, of really intimately connecting schools to together. So, kids in San Francisco could be connected with kids in Paris, or or where, not so glamorous, but anywhere, and what they could really learn from each other if they were able to communicate this way on a regular basis, kind of like school buddies, and just develop a relationship with them. And I think we have the tools to do that now, and I would hope that we start to see that in our school systems, so that our kids can get the value of that. That's a very cool experience that you mentioned, Denise. And I've had experiences, with my daughter, just connecting with her friends, but in very meaningful ways with these tools. I think some people kind of, brush it off as, it's not real interaction. Well, it is. And I think, like Mary said, these kids are learning how to navigate some serious business tools and just ways that we communicate these days. So
there's another I just have to throw this in here because I just found this a few days ago. I think it's MIT, the Media Lab. There's a couple of folks there that have coded up a little phone app, and so you install it and then it's centralized. And they hook you up with another person who has installed the app. You don't get to find out each other's names, but you get a glimpse into each other's lives via the phone for 3 weeks. You get to see each other's calendars, I think somewhat anonymized. You get to see communications that you're each, that the other person is sending, and pictures that they're taking. So, captions that they would write around the pictures, maybe where they would post it. I don't know. But they have some way of creating anonymity around what you're doing. So, in other words, at the end of the 3 weeks, when they dump you back out, you actually don't know who you've glimpsed.
Wow.
But it's a really weird twist on what we're talking about, which is being able to see what someone's life is like for 3 weeks, and then it goes away, and then you get a different person. And I haven't decided what I think about that yet, but I do think it has the possibility of having maybe somewhat of a similar thing, because instead of you deciding what you present, right? Even kids are well aware that how they present is, has consequences, right? So if they show something really cool, then the person on the other end, their pen pal, maybe if it's 2 schools, and I do know schools in San Francisco that are pen pals with other schools in other continents. The way that you present, like you're going to show a good photo or you're going to show something cool. But if it's your phone, it's maybe more reflective of how your moment-to-moment life is, because we don't hide things from ourselves on our phone. And then if the app is showing it to somebody else, you get it. In other words, you may get a more accurate picture of what someone's life is like, but you don't know who they are, which I think is really fascinating. So I want to play with it and just see, but I don't know.
Well,
Well, we're talking
I would
about
lo-
kids. We have a viewer comment
Oh,
because
We do?
we do. Buzz Brueggemann is watching because I put the link on my Facebook page, and we've been talking about kids. He was listening to our discussion about oh, business models and disruption and 20 somethings making all the apps, and he thinks it's hysterical and sad that the baby boomer generation is completely left out of what is being developed these days. And his most recent, he opened a little Facebook chat with me, and he says, again, this feels a bit like, why do you rob banks? And the answer being because that's where they keep the money. That this generation of, say, 60 to 80-year-olds certainly has purchasing power, but no longer is the target of something like Uber. Buzz doesn't think, any of his compatriots would use Uber. We live in a market where they have Uber. And yeah, I know. I mean, if you've got a smartphone and you're in the market, I would think it would be a pretty low barrier to start using it. But I do see that we have. I live in Orange County, so it's almost like Florida. We have a lot of older demographic people living here. My husband and I are not exactly spring Alaska chickens ourselves, so where we might use Uber, we might have friends who don't, but they see us use it, and if they're older, they go, "Oh, I could do that too." So I think it does spread that way. But Buzz is wondering about this sort of, it used to be the baby boomers were, highly targeted, and now they're not in his perspective. Do you guys agree?
Well, I would actually go much further than that. I would say that most of the targets for most of the kind of new, bubbly, frothy apps are really targeted at, 25-year-old guys.
Or younger.
Or younger.
Even younger.
And actually, do you guys watch
even
Silicon Valley?
Much younger.
2 nights ago on
I
Silicon
would add,
Valley,
can I add too?
they
By
hire
the
a
way,
kid
I
to
use
fix
Uber.
a cloud database issue, or like their cloud connection issues. And he's, I don't know, 15 or something like that. And he gets 20 grand for 2 days of work. And he is apparently a whiz kid, except he has all the foibles of a teenage boy. And he totally screws things up and corrupts their data models as well, because he's just a goof. But in any event, my point is that he basically goes off on the 25-year-olds in the show who have just gotten what would be the equivalent of getting funding from, let's say, Peter Thiel. And they, he basically says, "Oh, 25, you're like completely over the hill." And it's really funny. I mean, it's basically anybody who's younger than anybody else at this point in our culture is thinks that anybody who's older is just too old and over the hill. So I would push back on Brugg and say, wait a second. I mean, people who are 40 are too old. People who are 30 are over the hill. People who are 25 are over the hill. It all depends on where you stand.
Your perspective.
And we are at a particularly weird point in our development as a society where suddenly, like, the cult of youth is being driven down to zero. It's like only the freshly birthed kids have any value in this model. It's kind of weird, but
there was an article about older workers, and I was featured in it when I was like 54, and I worked for somebody 35. And then now I'm 58, and I worked recently for somebody who's 24. And my husband says, with any luck, I'll be, 70, and I'll be working for a 5-year-old. I'll bring them a cookie every day. Here's your cookie. It'll be the CEO. Anyway, so.
Or maybe you'll be mutually feeding each other cookies at that point.
That's right. It's
Exactly.
So, but honestly, let me just say, it is true that young people, they have two things. Often they have more brain cells. This is good. And they have no problem with getting rid of the status quo. Forget the status quo. So that's a good thing. And I don't know. I try really hard to be both open to young people and old people having good ideas. So I don't think, it keeps somebody from having a good idea one way or another. And I don't want to like sound like gloom and doom. You guys talk about the Internet of Things. What's the Internet of Nothing look like if we end up with climactic global warming disasters where we don't have any electricity? I mean, I'm going to be really interested to see how that works exactly, because the forecasts are we could have, as you know, most of our power lines are above the street. They're not in underneath the way many other countries have power sources buried under the ground. Ours are above the street. When there's one storm, a hurricane, boom, we lose power. So we have put all this energy into that one place. My belief is that actually all the social media and all the sharing and your friend making friends with a guy in Alaska or Montana or whatever means we will have a chance to come together, to work together to solve some of these crazy problems. So that social sharing will be an underlying, the social infrastructure of people caring about each other to solve problems together. My son is half Chinese, half white. He thinks like Chinese people are like people he knows. He wants them to succeed and them to be safe and them to thrive, just as people in our country and all. He's all about diversity and social sharing, I think, helps promote that we care about other people we never knew before.
Good points, Hallie. Sort of give us some hopefulness for the future with all of this.
I feel like singing an anthem.
And I would like to point out that during our show, Rebecca has made a costume change. So let's go to Rebecca. Oh. She now has a new hat.
The black hat.
Perfect.
I'm going to switch it up throughout the show.
So Mary, you brought up Silicon Valley. I have been cringing watching that show, like having a hard time watching it until I started thinking about it like Portlandia for the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
And now I can watch it.
I've got to say, every single thing that has happened in the show to date, pretty much, except for the mural on the garage, I have either personally witnessed or been the target of particular remarks or incidents. I mean, it's not off base, but they're taking all the weirdest things that could possibly happen, which don't happen all to one person or in one startup, and lumping them all in together.
Yes.
So I don't think it's that far off.
Well, that's the artistic license there. Any names that we already know, that we know in person, have been on the show? Have you seen personalities? I think there will be some actual personalities that are going to make an appearance. They've had
stars
soon.
on, like they've had a couple of musical people, like when there was a like the 4-year anniversary of something or other of the Peter Thiel lookalike guy, or not lookalike, but the person who's like him. They have that guy has a foundation, and he did a 4-year anniversary party, and it's kind of a spoof on how bad, that your average 25-year-old guy in Silicon Valley is in terms of socializing. It's like a sea of guys. The women who are there are paid to be there. Hello, TechCrunch party. Sorry, didn't mean to. But I mean, basically there are TechCrunch parties where women have been paid to be there. So anyway, so they have that, and then they have a guy up on the stage who's like a rapper, and he's playing himself, and he does some performing, and they've had a few of those. And I suppose we could go look them up, but those are the only people really that I recall. Oh, there was a party scene, a different party that was like a launch party or something, and I think Eric Schmidt was just in the, people walked past him, or maybe he had a line, or I think it was Eric Schmidt, but somebody like that.
I've
there have
heard
been a few people.
I've heard that someone's going to be making an appearance, but I'm not going to say who until I really confirm this. So
okay,
I'm going to be secret about it.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Do you mean that in your opinion and best judgment and estimation and guess?
Did you watch it online?
There have been women.
Wait, you guys are talking at the same time. Stop that.
Okay, I'm just jumping in to say, Mary, you do mean that in your best judgment and guess and estimation and opinion, you think there may have been pay to attend to use at TechCrunch parties, right?
In my best judgment, one person told me that she was paid to be there. So I
All right.
know at
Ooh.
least one person who, I met someone who was
Ooh.
paid to be there. She was just supposed to show up nicely dressed and look good, and so that they would have a few more women at the party. Because the women geeks who go it's not like we're going to dress up super nicely and, or like in a party dress. I mean, like, who would do that, right? It's a Silicon Valley party. So you kind of come business casual. So they paid a bunch of women. Like, basically, all the other women that looked like her, who nobody knew who they were. That's the other thing. The only people who go to TechCrunch parties, like, everyone who's there. So there was a group of, I don't know, 12 women. One of them told me that she was paid to be there. And all the other women who looked like her, I figured, well, they're probably paid to be here too. I don't know. Anyway,
They were trying to glamorize the.
I think
the
they were
set,
just
maybe?
glamorizing the event. They weren't paid to do anything else. Let's not get too salacious here.
Okay.
But I mean,
okay, we're not.
It's just, a reflection of the culture and the inability of some people to
New
be
hat.
good socializers.
Okay, Rebecca has done her third costume change. I just want to go to Rebecca. And does this woman look great in every hat she owns?
Yes.
Oh,
And
yes.
has a great hat collection, I must say.
Thank you.
Our next show, I'm going to have to empty out the whole closet.
I have a bunch of cool hats
Remind me
too,
here.
but they're in the back because we're modeling. I'm, not everything is accessible. And now I feel like I've got to get them out.
Mine
Well,
just
this is
happened to be
Steve's
sitting right
hat,
next to my
so
desk. Mine just happened to be sitting right here next to my desk. so
three
I
hats?
just
Three
took
hats
out-
by your desk?
I actually
Three?
have 4.
Oh, you've got one more.
Just wait.
This is called a tease.
So I think we're maybe close to wrapping up. So I sort of hesitate to bring this up, but I think like next time it's going to be too late. So I wanted to think about something that's been in the news. Monica Lewinsky's starting to had a piece in Vanity Fair, and we haven't heard from her much, I think, at all. And I was kind of wondering, what do you think? How do you think that White House sex scandal would have gone down? Pardon the expression. Today with social media, would it have been a whole different ball game, or would it have basically, happened like it happened? And it doesn't even matter if we think about it. But I was kind of thinking like, what if that happened today? Anybody care? No.
Well, yeah,
Well, I read
but
the
tell
article,
us,
and she says, I
you
think this
bring
would
it
have
up
been
because you
orders of
think something
magnitude
would have
bigger.
been
And I
different.
have to say, while I was reading the article, before I got to that, I was thinking this would have been orders of magnitude bigger on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think she makes a great point. And I would also reference the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar article that I think was either in Time or Slate, talking about the Donald idiot guy
Yes.
in LA, the Clippers dude. Both of them discuss, Monica Lewinsky and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, discuss the issue of sort of the great shaming of people, right? And how everybody is just ready to hop on board and go after people. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, there's no question that the Clipper guy is an idiot and he shouldn't own a team. And he's done some pretty awful things. But I don't think that about Monica Lewinsky. I think she was really young and made some dumb choices. Can anyone say that they haven't made a dumb choice when they were young? Come on. And okay, she was in a particularly, volatile situation where she made the dumb choice. But I mean, I just, I feel like she has been punished and punished and punished, and people have just been incredibly sexist and misogynist about it. It's really pretty awful. And it would be now, I don't know, 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse, just because of the ability for the entire, culture and society to comment repeatedly and just go down some horrible holes in terms of taking people down and just shaming them to the point where, the whole thing becomes really inhuman. And I really liked that part of her article, and I liked it
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I recommend pulling that article up. It's from in the last 2 weeks. If you just Google his name and Clipper, I'm sure it'll come right up. But this culture that we're developing online is really, it has a really, really unseemly side.
I actually think it's been
Hallie-
kind of interesting to see this whole Donald Sterling thing unfold. I'm sure it's been hot on social media and much discussion and debate and back and forth on social media about Donald Sterling, but it didn't break there. I don't think social media made it worse. I think, ESPN and the other media outlets are where this has been, going to the public. Sterling just had his first interview yesterday on ESPN. So it's interesting. Again, we're sort of back to Hallie's issue of really, this is what we're paying attention to, and getting caught up in. But I don't know. You guys tell me if you think social media has really been a factor here or not.
Well, I think what happens is ESPN and all the big media outlets are tracking social media very closely, and they look at what's trending because they know that's where they, so they do the next article or the next video or whatever based on whatever's trending. I mean, Huffington Post took this to a high art, right? They would look at the Zeitgeist pages on Google and tune every headline every hour of the day around the key words that were trending in search. Right? So the article could be about, I don't know, some guy pulling weeds out in his garden. But if, Monica Lewinsky was trending, somehow they worked Monica Lewinsky into the headline. I mean, it was just insane. And so all the media outlets do that now. And I think if they see that, people in social media are continuing to talk about X subject, Donald and the Clippers, then they're going to keep posting on it. And so it becomes this feeding kind of, unvirtuous cycle, as it were. And it's kind of terrible, I think. I think it really, the sort of worst, the 7 deadly sins, people always say, design for at least one of those in your social media or, technology project, because if you do that, you'll get people using it. Well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about avarice and envy and, because he's rich and, gluttony, right? People are just gluttonous over the shaming. And I mean, it's kind of awful. It kind of brings out the worst in people to just go on and on about this stuff. And then, of course, if ESPN sees that that's going on, they do another post, and then there's more discussion, and then they do another post, and it just, it's
Hallie,
crazy.
do you agree with this?
Of course I have an opinion. I'm sorry. I can't help it. I think it's great. It shows like how yesterday fellatio is. It's so yesterday. And so I think this might be bringing hashtag cunnilingus to the front. I'm so excited.
As long as there's pizza.
Isn't that meaning? Is there going to be a sharing of how, like they say a marriage, for every time you have sex before your marriage, you take a jelly bean out of a big jar, and after you put one, whatever, you never end up having enough sex in marriage. But maybe there'll be like a new site that compares like how often one happens and how often the other happens, and it'll be clear the C word never happens enough. So I'm excited. Maybe a 25-year-old female CEO jump on that. If, however, this is about how the next election is going to go with Hillary Clinton, boring, snooze. So my reaction was, if this is like what we're going to do in the next election, get rid of it,
Right. Well, this whole conversation just made me realize that I had no idea this had even been slipped in. Tells you how in touch I am with the day-to-day developments rolled out by the 25-year-olds. But that I'm getting tailored trends on Twitter now, as opposed to, it used to be by your geographic region, and you could select that. Because I was looking for Donald Sterling in my Twitter trends, and it wasn't there, and I was kind of surprised. And FCC net neutrality is, but that makes sense because Twitter's trying to tailor trends to me now. It also has Batman versus Superman in there, so it's not doing great on, targeting me. But
So the funny thing about those trending things, I noticed this recently too. So because I use one browser for Facebook and then I click articles off of it, a lot of the articles are privacy, personal data control, copyright, IP issues, technology related stuff, that my trending was focused around that. And then a week ago, I looked at some celebrity thing. I mean, it might have been about Monica Lewinsky. I get Vanity Fair, so I had read the article separately, but I saw something and I clicked on it, and all of a sudden my trending was full of celebrity stuff, and I had never seen that before. One article, basically, that I clicked from Facebook, clicked on from Facebook, caused that trending thing to be full of like Beyonce, like I could care less, and her sister who beat up her husband or something.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's some bizarre story, and like I even care, but it's been at the top of my trending for 2 days. And it's like, where did all the, I have months and years of clicking on articles about technology and privacy and intellectual property and stuff I really care about, right? And one celebrity article, and that's all they want to give me now. It's crazy. I think that is just like their algorithms are so messed up over there.
Mary, you don't care about celebrity gossip shit? Come on.
I do, but I don't want to see it in my Facebook thing. I want to see news and technology and other stuff. I mean, I don't want to see it as trending. I do pay attention to celebrity stuff, partly because, I work on the internet and it's a media model. And of course I read the Monica Lewinsky article. I mean, it's interesting on a lot of different levels. And I subscribe to Vanity Fair, for God's sake. I pay for that magazine. It's full of celebrity stuff. But I don't want to see that as the bulk of my news. And the idea that Facebook's algorithm would take one click and switch all the focus over to that, because I think that makes them more money than all the other crap I read, which is probably not making them any money. And so their algorithm just, totally flipped, and that was that. I thought it was very weird.
well, to your and Vanity Fair's credit, they also got an Edward Snowden scoop. So
It's actually, that's a great article. I definitely recommend the Snowden article.
Yeah.
I rarely read the entirety of Vanity Fair of one issue, and I think I've read almost every article in the one with Monica Lewinsky and last month Snowden. Like I read, out of these 2 issues, I've read almost everything, because it's becoming such a well-written thing that really talks about culture and technology and celebrity and society, and these are all the issues that are swirling around everything that we're talking about here. I mean, it's become a great magazine, even if I disagree with stuff, or I think it could be, a little less salacious or whatever.
And what we're really talking about here is hats. So now Hallie has gone to her 3rd hat, but Rebecca is on her 4th.
God, I feel like
So Rebecca wins.
Here.
Rebecca wins the hat
My
contest.
construction hat. How about that?
Mary has created a hat. No.
It's like a bunny
not
with
allowed.
a pancake on its head.
That's no good. No.
I lost my
Thumbs down.
helmet.
Denise is going to have to work on her hat changes.
Yes,
I have taken my
absolutely.
hat
I'm gonna have to
off.
stock up.
So I think this is a great place to wind up. Leave the audience wanting more hats. So
Yes.
Let me let you all just take a minute to say goodbye, and any last thoughts we have before we wind up the show. I hope that we're going to be doing this very regularly, and I like during our dress rehearsal, I just felt like I just want to get together with you all and chat some more. I don't want it to end, but I think that we should call this one. So, Rebecca, we kind of heard from you, not as much, but we love the hats, and we want to see more pictures from Mexico. That's for sure, because that one was great.
Yeah.
Well, so yes, and actually, I tried to chime in, but it's hard sometimes when there's so many different voices.
Yeah.
But But one thing I wanted to add to this last conversation around social media and these types of cases like Monica Lewinsky or other cases is that we really do, and the scary thing for me is that anyone has a platform to say anything nowadays. And I'm thinking of a particular case locally where you can post something on a Facebook update, and all of a sudden a news media channel can pick it up. Maybe it's something like Gawker, which doesn't have a great reputation, but it could be another news site, and then people start to bandwagon whether there's any truth proven behind it or not. And that's really the frightening thing, is that there are platforms like that, and it is being used whether it's right or not. So that's the frightening part to me. But going back to our discussion around technology and long distance relationships, Mexico, I was in Mexico. I have a boyfriend down there, and I actually do think that technology does help enhance long distance relationships. And I see that not only in my relationship, but also I see my family as well. My family is spread out all over the place. So I have a brother in London with 2 children now, and my parents will do Skype puppet shows with the children, and they're able to really stay in touch in ways that they've never been able to do before. And I would say that my relationship with having a long distance relationship with my boyfriend, really, we do a lot of Skype and messaging, and I don't feel like we really miss out at all on each other. And it just helps us stay in touch, keep connected, where if you think about 20, 30 years ago, it was really difficult to do that. You would go for weeks and weeks without talking to each other, and that just doesn't happen anymore. So I think that's an encouraging side. Anyway, that's my last thought on the show.
Absolutely.
Look forward to next week.
Hallie?
Next week it's sunglasses.
Okay.
So I just
Thanks
wanted
for the
to
heads
say
up.
thanks to everybody, and I'm glad one serious senior member has good things to say. That's Rebecca. The rest of us are going crazy. But anyway, I totally love what she said about how connected we now really experience the connection, and how great. It's really true. It's wonderful. And I know all you guys because of that. I haven't lived very recently in California, but I know you guys over many years because we've been connected. So I say bravo to that. That's it.
Mary?
Well, let's see. I'm going to highlight noise and signal. I was thinking about this over the last week, about how incredibly noisy Silicon Valley and San Francisco are, to the point where, 6 months ago, I needed to email somebody twice to get them to respond. Now it's 3 times. And, I asked them, like, is there an issue? And they're like, no, I was just swamped or whatever. I think that our noise is at 100 and our signal's at 1 here. And there's so much crap everywhere that it's just really tough to break through. And if you're doing something that requires any attention at all from somebody or a group of people,
what do you do?
Then you have to do 2 or 3, pings to get them to respond. It's getting crazy, and I don't know, how that turns out. I don't know how that fleshes out in the long run. I don't think it's really healthy for people, just as people, and I don't think it's good for our relationships, and I don't think it's good for work. I think it's actually really terrible for work, but I think there's some intentionality around it, which is that if things are really noisy and if something bad happens, it's just lost in the noise. And so there's certainly plenty of folks out there that are happy to have it be really noisy, across the companies, and some of the, negative things that go on here, and that, getting attention around some problem is really tough. So I am astonished actually at the level of noise. I've never seen it this high in what we're trying to do here in sort of the general Silicon Valley, whatever scene.
Yeah, I would agree. And what does cut through it. I've got no idea at this point, really.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I
Priority
don't know.
inbox was working for me, but I just checked and I have 96 in what's supposed to be my
It's not
important
working.
and unread
It's
tab.
not working.
So, no,
Yeah.
not doing the trick.
Okay, so I'd like to say thank you to all of you. I appreciate this so much. This has been a great show. I'd like to invite everyone to come back. We're gonna put this show out there and let people who couldn't watch us live, which I doubt anybody could watch us live because we didn't really tell anybody about it. But
We have an audience of
we're
one.
gonna
It's
give them a chance
weird.
to watch this and join with us. We're gonna get an active chat system going, and a Facebook page, and all kinds of ways to connect to us. And we're glad that you're joining us in this journey. So I guess I'll end up where I started, which is telling you that sometimes we have to step outside of our comfort zone, and I hope you all do that. And go out, learn something new, and go do good, and come back and tell us about it. So until next time, I'm signing off. I'll give you a little shot here of everyone again. And we're going to change the studio around a little bit, but we hope you enjoyed it. So take care, and we'll see you. We're G3 or G cubed. What are we? Anybody?
G3.
Anybody?
G3. I don't know.
G3. G cubed. Okay.
G cubed.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tina.
Thanks, Tina.